This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network, your podcast for Missouri athletics. Very excited to be joined after a 38-21 Missouri Tigers victory by Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. Gabe, how was your Saturday?
It was good. First of all, I want to note that we had basketball interviews today, so anybody that's not watching on YouTube, I have a collared shirt. I'm wearing a belt. It's a very professional version of me for this podcast, so I want that. I think for this show, in the tradition of Saturday, we should start slowly. Like, I think the first 15 minutes or so, D- effort. Like, we don't have to try. Turn it on late, but the beginning doesn't really matter.
I think it's perfect. I think we just have to stick with it. Maggie, how was your Saturday? How are you doing this week?
My Saturday was great. I like to typically watch games by myself because I kind of like lose my mind a little bit, but I actually watched it with some friends. We had some Yinglings. If you like, shout out Yinglings. Had some Yinglings, had some fun, made some good food. And yeah, the first 15 minutes weren't great, but we gave Kentucky a little handicap.
It's true.
And then we kind of just boat raced them a little bit. So it was great.
It was a pretty impressive, like, 3/4 of a game for the Missouri Tigers. Admittedly, I was listening to the game on the radio as we had Matt Lane, Craig Stout. If you guys are familiar with the Chiefs coverage that we do here, or in the college football coverage, Maddie and I do the college football show. They were in Kansas City. I was driving down to the studio that we have here because we got a bunch of TVs. We wanted to watch college football in a space where we didn't have to yell to talk to each other. So we came down here to the office to watch the game. I was listening to it as I had some other things to take care of before I came down here before the Missouri game. So I was listening on the radio, and I was not in a great place mentally when I got to the studio of burn it all down. Let's restart. Can we just like turn this game off and turn it back on like in Madden, a little bit, just like, okay, let's just restart it. Because it did not get off to the greatest start. And I can't imagine that a lot of other people were very excited with how that started. A 14-0 hole that Missouri dug themselves into on two offensive drives that were very bad to start the game, and two defensive drives, maybe three defensive drives that were also equally as bad. I was wondering, Gabe, what Missouri team showed up in Lexington. I thought they swapped places with last year's. I was so confused. What happened with that slow start?
I tweeted with about 2 minutes left in the first quarter. It's not possible to be dominated any more than Missouri has been dominated in 13 minutes of football. And I got a couple like Sunday afternoon responses of like, oh, this is a clown take. I'm like, no, it 100% is not, because with 2 minutes left in the first quarter, it was accurate. I mean, yes, you couldn't really find a single play that had gone well for Missouri. It reminded me of like that Independence Bowl in 2005. There have been a couple other games where it's like, this isn't just over. It's not like you're just down 14-0. It's like they have beat your ass on every snap on both sides of the football. It was crazy. And I thought, I don't watch a lot of games usually on TV. I did have an opportunity to watch a lot of games on TV during the day Saturday, and it kind of hit me. Oh man. So I would watch a lot of games on mute if I watched games on TV. But that crew that Missouri had Saturday night is an exception. I mean, Cole Kubelik, I thought it was awesome after the game. It was either after the game or at halftime. He asked Eli, he said, we talked 10 minutes before the game, and you said, like, it's very important we get off to a good start because I don't know how they'll react on the road if they don't get off to a good start. And then they didn't, and he's like, so if you were panicking at the end of the first quarter, you shouldn't feel bad about that at all. Everything you said about that team at the end of the first quarter was 100% merited. And then Luke Bauer and Marquise Johnson woke him up and changed everything.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I tweeted need more alcohol. So yeah. I think, I was on.
I mean, to be fair, you also may have tweeted that up 38-20 in the fourth quarter. So
yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, give credit to Kentucky. It was their homecoming game. It was loud there. I mean, it I had multiple people texting me about the environment. They were like, it is crazy. And I don't think Kentucky is necessarily a place that's probably known for their environment. I would say over probably the last 5 years, they've definitely amped it up, or at least the last few years. I was there in 2021, I guess, the last time we played there. And it was a good environment, but they were 5-1. They're coming off of a big loss, a devastating loss, I would say, to Georgia. But an interesting stat that I had found, that I didn't want to tweet about it because it was very much a downer tweet or a downer stat, but that teams were 16-1 against the spread the week after they played Georgia, the week after they lost to Georgia.
Oh, wow.
Obviously now 16 and 2, which is great for us. But I mean, I wasn't expecting much, but once that happened to us and we were down 14-0, I was like, oh no, this is not good. And then, like you said, Gabe, that fake punt and just the guts to go for a fake punt like that in that environment, and to put the ball in Bauer's hands like that, and to let a freshman go up like that in that situation and not put someone like Burden back there, not put someone like Weiss back there, put somebody like Johnson back there. I just thought it was gutsy. It was brave. If it didn't work out, I may have been like, why did we do that? But it did work out, and I loved it. So it's awesome.
So let's talk about that, because I'm not sure it's that gutsy, because my first reaction when I saw Luke Bauer go on the field was, down 14-0, you're going to punt from their 39, huh? Awesome. Way to go. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
So the amazing part to me was that, it didn't surprise Kentucky. They were clearly ready for it. They didn't have a return guy. It was just, and what I liked about it was not like okay, wait and see or find a guy or anything like that. Luke Bauer didn't even look. He just turns and flings that football over there, right?
Yeah.
There was no, let's see if he's open. Maybe there's another putt. There was one read, and like Bauer said, it was either get hit or throw the football.
Right.
And so he just launches the ball, and Johnson goes up, and he made the catch. And I actually, my first reaction was, kind of maybe fortunate not to get called for OPI there. Now, I don't know if the NFL rule is the same as the college rule, but I've actually seen since on Twitter that there's no such thing as pass interference on a punt return, on a fake punt, because it would just be way too easy to go down while your gunner's involved with the blocker and just launch the ball and get a PI call every time. So apparently you can't pass interfere on a fake punt.
There is a new rule that we learn every single year.
I learned 2 new rules.
Right, and that wasn't even the big one that people learned. That was it, horse collar in the pocket?
Apparently
didn't know that.
That's cool.
But no,
maybe targeting doesn't exist in the pocket. Maybe in the pocket there just are no rules.
There's no rule.
You should be body slamming dudes back there, unless it's Tom Brady. Tap him on the helmet 15 yards.
The fact that they took that away, and the pocket is still kind of a subjective area. And I'm like, are you sure he still wasn't even are you sure he was in the pocket, or I don't know, because he looked like he was on the hash marks or almost out of the hash marks to me anyway. So that was a weird call. No call.
How is that tackle less likely to break Brady Cook's neck there than it is 5 yards to his right? That's what I don't get about it.
Well, he had very much established himself as a runner, and he was on the hash mark. So I don't see how you can overturn, or not even overturn it, just pick up the flag on it.
It was a pretty violent change of direction.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. I can remember the fake punt because it was one of those where I was frustrated how the Missouri offense went, and I had left the room to go to the bathroom because I said, this is threw my hands up, kind of one of those things I got to go get another drink type of deal. If this is how this night's going to go. And then I came back and I said, wait a second, what happened? Type of deal. But I obviously saw all the replays and everything like that. Great play, great momentum shift right there. If that doesn't, if they don't get that, that game, I think, I don't know how differently it goes because Missouri's defense apparently was like, oh, we're supposed to tackle that guy. They kind of figured it out as the game went on and the defense kind of showed up, but I don't know how differently that game goes if that fake punt does again. I think that was a huge momentum shift, obviously, as Kentucky did start incredibly hot and Missouri started incredibly poor, but I don't know your thoughts on that.
It was like that play reminded Missouri, oh, hey, like there's still 45 minutes left. It's okay. You can survive. And at the same time, Kentucky just goes, just thought they weren't going to try. They tried. Now what do we do? I mean, it was amazing. Just, it immediately flipped, and I think we forget that these are 20 and 21-year-old kids, and so like things like that happen a lot. You see a lot of games where teams blow 14, 21-point leads. I mean, Missouri did it the week before, and you heard a lot of, well, you just can't blow a 15-point lead. Well, I mean, Kentucky just did the same thing,
And it's happened, I mean,
a lot.
We've been on both sides of it many times. We've come back to Arkansas. What was that? How far back were we behind Arkansas that one year? I think, what was it, like Pittman's first year maybe in the league? South Carolina a few years ago. I mean, there's just been so many times it's happened. So, yeah. And as a fan, I've given, I've been somebody to give up on Mizzou.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I also have learned better than to tweet that I'm giving up on them, because
but the good thing
will always come back and get you.
The good thing about getting behind like that right off the bat is there's a lot of time left, right? Like I still always remember watching the Texans game that was 24-0 and going, well, I don't know, there are still 50 minutes left. Like the good news is they played so bad so fast that there's a lot of time left. And it was kind of the same thing with Mizzou. Like, it was bad, but it wasn't like it was a 14-point game in the fourth quarter. Like, there was a lot of time left. But I do believe without that fake punt, I don't think they win that game. And I'm not sure they're in that game.
And let's Mizzou scores quickly. That's another good thing about Mizzou, is that they have the ability to score fast, especially with players like Marquise Johnson, Theo Weiss, that can make those big plays.
I think, so this is the second week in a row that Missouri plays a quarterback that they tried to recruit over Brady Cook, right?
I'm not sure that's true. For what it's worth, I don't really know that they ever actually recruited Devin Leary. Missouri fans wanted him to,
right? But
I'm not sure it actually happened.
That's fair. Let me rephrase it this way then. That people wanted to be a quarterback over Brady Cook. Let's go that way. And, hard with Jaden Daniels because, he's really good and might be a Heisman contender and played a very
probably
good
would have
game.
been okay if they signed him. Yeah.
And that might be like that's good. That game against Missouri might be on his Heisman Trophy highlight reel when it comes time to be in New York. So that could be a very good one. But I think Devin Leary's shoulder is shot. It didn't look like Devin Leary did a whole lot in that game. I wasn't super impressed with how Devin Leary played. I know they've been running a lot with, Ray Davis back there, but I don't know. I wasn't very impressed with Devin Leary. And in the few games he's played this season, I haven't been impressed with Devin Leary. I thought the Missouri defense did a lot to kind of force Devin Leary to try to beat them in positions where maybe Ray Davis would have been the preferred poison of choice for Kentucky. I think they did a really good job of forcing Kentucky into uncomfortable situations, making Dennis Leary have to make plays that he didn't ultimately make.
I love that it's actually Devin Leary, but Dennis Leary would have maybe been just as effective at quarterback.
Listen, what's really interesting is that Maddie was here, Matt Lane, and we were going, but he said he kept calling him Dennis Leary, and I was like, it's Devin Leary. It's Devin Leary. And I kept saying that over and over, and now he got it in my head. He planted the little earworm in my head that now I've started calling him Dennis as kind of a joke now, but now it's like semi-serious.
At least Dennis Leary maybe could have yelled and intimidated Missouri's defense. But Devin Leary, he was not very good and he was not very accurate. The bonus is that when he was accurate, his receivers largely didn't help him at all and drop passes. Or his offensive lineman held. It was just, and I don't think it's taking credit away from Missouri to say that was a combination of Missouri waking up and playing relatively well. And Kentucky they were bad. Yeah. I mean, they were bad in that game for the last three quarters.
if you want to talk about a team that's more undisciplined than Missouri, and I wasn't sure that I would get to watch a team more undisciplined than Missouri, but Kentucky is way more undisciplined than Missouri is. Like, not even close. Like, that was every single time something happened, then I was watching probably with about 10 to 15 other people. I'd be like, at least there's a flag. Like,
right.
Almost every single play, there was a holding flag.
Or unsportsmanlike conduct. To their credit, we don't know that they spit on anybody. So that was solid.
That is true. But yeah, the double penalty on what was it, like the late hit on Brady Cook, and then he got the unsportsmanlike or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, just multiple things that you're just like, what are you doing? And that's things that I'm used to saying about Mizzou players. I'm like, what are you doing? And they took the cake this week. So thank you, Kentucky.
They showed the penalties at one point in the broadcast, and it was like 10-3, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's kind of impressive. Missouri usually has 10 by this point. I was like, wow, okay, how about that? All the turntables, as Micah Scott would say. But it's a very interesting game because, like, yeah, as you mentioned, like, Kentucky didn't play very well. Obviously, Missouri didn't play very well for the first 15 minutes of that game. But if you look at it from, obviously we can take the PFF grades with a grain of salt, right? But I'm looking at it now, and like that's their lowest rated game that they've played.
Missouri.
Missouri. That's what they grade. They're the lowest rated game.
Maybe they quit watching after the first quarter as well.
Maybe they did. And I find that pretty. Whoa.
I didn't think our offense played amazing though. I mean. Right. Maybe it's because Luther didn't have his best game. I mean, Theo was our best wide receiver, 6 receptions for 58 yards and a touchdown. Cody Schrader only had 71 yards on 20 carries.
I mean, it was Brady's worst game in a month, no question.
Yeah.
Yeah, only threw for 167 yards, had an interception. I mean, our offense wasn't
bad too.
Wasn't that great, but I mean,
I thought it was encouraging though that they showed they could win without Luther.
Yes.
And then also that they showed, because it was clear that Kentucky said, first of all, Luther Burden's not going to beat us. Second of all, we're not going to give you big plays. Like, you're going to have to do this 7 yards at a time. Brady Cook completed 1 pass over 20 yards. He only attempted like 6 of more than 10 yards. I mean, they weren't, everything was out in the flats and short, and sometimes you have to do it that way, and I thought it was encouraging that Missouri figured out a way to do it, because the interception was clearly, I'm forcing this ball to Luther. And all 3 of his interceptions have been that, honestly. So, hey, Theo Weiss can do some things. Mookie only had 2 catches, but they were big ones.
Yeah.
And he did a little something with them after the catch. But more than anything, I thought their defensive line played the best game of the year. Darius Robinson played his best game. He's the SEC Defensive Player of the Week. Johnny Walker played well. I think I just said, maybe on this show last week, I had not heard Jaden Jernigan or Christian Williams' name all season. I heard their names a lot in that game. Like, they were in the backfield a lot. And I thought that did, wonders for the defense.
Absolutely. I think we should, we're going to take a break first, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the defense, because I think that does need to be talked about. First, I'm going to tell you about our friends at HomeFieldApparel.com. I'm rocking the hoodie. Maggie's rocking the baseball shirt. Go check them out at HomeFieldApparel.com. You can use code KCSN23 for 50% off your first purchase. I got sucked into the Idaho-Montana game. They've got both Idaho and Montana at HomeField Apparel. Got some great stuff at the Kibby Dome. I got some Kibby Dome merch even there too. Great finish, wild finish in that game. If you didn't see it, I assume everybody watched that FCS clash of number 3 versus number 10, like I did. But to stay up late to watch that in Idaho. But if you want to support more than just the Missouri Tigers, they've got 150 plus schools there at HomeFieldApparel.com. Use the code KCSN23 for 15% off your first purchase. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about that defense, Gabe. Pretty impressive performance, I think, when it came down to it, especially when it comes to stopping the run. It looked like early on that they were going to get gashed I didn't have very high hopes about the defense then. They really figured it out, and you talked about the defensive line being a big key part of it, but Chris Abrams-Drain has continually showed that he is one of the best corners in the country, and I feel like he's like not being talked about at all. I think that's kind of crazy.
He, I think, is third in the country in interceptions. He has 4 now, and he leads the country in pass breakups. It seemed like he had 6 interceptions in that game. And I don't know why people keep throwing at him. Like, just go somewhere else. I thought the biggest play of the game was the first play of the third quarter where Joseph Charleston forced the fumble. It was like, okay, first quarter, completely Kentucky. Second quarter, completely Mizzou. And then to come out and turn the ball over on your first offensive snap. I know Kentucky ended up taking the lead for a minute after that, but it seemed that seemed like a pretty big swing for Missouri.
I thought Clark had a good game as well. He had an interception. I thought he played well. I mean, I just thought a lot of guys really played well. I think, Hopper had a better game than he's, been having. The linebacker room has kind of been not as good as they've been lately. Honestly, for me, it was the defense in this game overall. We scored 38 points, which I think is great. Like, considering we scored like 17 points every single game last year, which is, you weren't going to win very many games doing that. But I think that's probably why our PFF grade was so low, was just because our offense, didn't do that much. I really think that it was our defense this game that just gave us that gave us that extra energy, made us, I don't know what the word I'm really looking for is, but
better.
Yeah, made us better. It made me more optimistic about that game. I never felt, after that 14-0, and once we tied that game, even though they went up 21-20, kind of like you said, Gabe, I never felt like we were losing that game. And I think we scored 20 or 18 unanswered points after that. What was the final score? Yeah, 38-21. Mm-hmm. It was just, after that, it was all optimism from me.
Yeah, I think that's fair to look at. I was looking at the other PFF grades around there because I think that, let's just go ahead and throw this one out the absolute window because these are garbage. These scores, because they get 59. They gave the Missouri offense a 59.3 and the defense a 69.0. Now, maybe their tackling grade of 36.7 is fair, but apparently, Gabe, as you mentioned, they just watched the first 15 minutes of this game and said,
"Yeah, I mean, the tackling was bad early. They got better, but that game more than anything showed." Like in the first half against LSU, I thought Missouri was focused on not letting LSU pass. So LSU just didn't pass, right? They were like, okay, we'll just hand the ball off and we'll run for 120 yards in this half, and we think we can beat you that way. Well, with Kentucky, there is no other way to beat you. If they can't run the ball, they don't have another way, and so you're going into a fight really one-armed at that point. And it's not super difficult to defend. And then once you get down, I mean, you can't just keep handing the ball off, I thought Missouri was a better team going in. And on that night, they were a significantly better team and I don't think they're a significantly better team every night, but they were that.
That's all that matters, especially when you have 12 Saturdays.
Right. It's why all the analytics and win probability and this and that, they only play one time, guys. You can simulate the game 10,000 times if you want, but they only play once. And the odds of it being time number 7 versus time number 9,321 they're not any different.
I've been encouraged because we'd kind of talked about last week about if we had seen some warning signs from the Mizzou defense when it came to their past few games of the LSU game, allowing probably maybe more points than they should against Memphis and Vanderbilt as well. I was encouraged to see them kind of, I don't want to necessarily say right the ship because, as you mentioned, I don't think it was alarm bells going off with the Missouri defense, but to have a performance like this against a team where a stat that I really like that you brought to the podcast last week about whoever wins this game is going to finish higher in the SEC standings. Now a lot of people are talking about Missouri as the second best team in the SEC East. with an opportunity to go to Georgia here in a couple weeks with their best player who is all of a sudden having ankle surgery and could be out for that game. Could Missouri sneak up on them? I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot more. But with the defense firing on all cylinders, man, I really like this team against really anybody else in the SEC East. It's the defense is playing up to the potential that we think it can.
It's never as good as you think it is in good times and never as bad as you think it is in bad times, right? I mean, I still look at, they've got 5 games and they're all winnable and they're all like, I think a few Missouri fans are going, okay, cool, 7-1 going to Athens. I mean, they're better than South Carolina, but South Carolina, it's not the biggest upset in college football if they come in and win.
Right.
So Eli Drinkwitz's job now is to kind of make sure his team understands, hey, if you go out and play that first quarter again, you might get beat every week the rest of the season, So, but that the good teams more often than not play close to their potential. And unless you are Georgia, like you actually have to play a good game to win. Georgia does not apparently ever have to play well to win. If they do play well, they win in a blowout.
Right.
Well, and how many times have we played South Carolina or have we went to Columbia, South Carolina as a underdog completely?
Happened last year.
Yeah. Or have we been definitely the lesser talented team and beat South Carolina? Many times since we have been in the SEC has that happened. And I said this, I don't remember if it was the first or the second episode that we did this season of this podcast, but, and I hate this phrase, but we are going to be South Carolina's Super Bowl this season. Like, to me, they do not want
especially now.
Especially right now, because they need this win. They need to beat Missouri to salvage their season, to not lose to us 5 years in a row. If you think that this game is not important to South Carolina because they, what's their record, 2-4? Like, if you think that there's something crazy like that, if you think this game is not important and that they're just going to roll over and die, like, you are sadly mistaken, because Beamer wants to win this game. Spencer Rattler wants to win this game. Like, they're going to come to Columbia ready to at least try to win this game. They're not going to give up.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting matchup when it comes down to it. Obviously, that Mizzou should win. Some people are getting behind on a reborn Spencer Rattler. I'm not there yet. I don't think that I'm necessarily truly believe that Spencer Rattler is back to like Oklahoma pre Caleb Williams Spencer Rattler. But this team does have the ability to come up and sneak up on Missouri here, especially after a big win that they did come off against Kentucky. It's an interesting matchup. It really is, just how these two teams just stack up against each other.
And it's also, I mean, a good reminder that this is a team game. Like, Spencer Rattler's actually been really good this year.
He has been. Yes.
Rattler was Kentucky's quarterback. They're probably 6-1. Like, if Kentucky's getting that level of quarterback play, they are a better team. He just has nothing around. They have a terrible offensive line. Like 9 sacks against North Carolina. They give up 5 or 6 in another game. They have an awful defense. I think they're 14th in the league in defense. So, like, their defense is worse than Vanderbilt's has been. I don't mean to. I know that he is from the area, and there may be people listening to this who are friends of his. All congratulations to Graham Mertz on having the bounce back year that he's having. That dude should not throw for 423 yards against you. Like, it shouldn't be a thing that can happen based on the last 4 years of college football that we've seen. But that's what happened on Saturday to South Carolina. So, yeah, Missouri's a better team. They just have to play better. I mean, they just have to put together a representative effort. Like, I don't think if they play an A game, they win. I think they can probably win this game with a B game. But if they go out and play like they played in the first quarter against Kentucky, they will still get beat without question.
I'm definitely glad that this game is in Columbia on homecoming. I will say that, because even though I don't think South Carolina is that good, I wouldn't want to be playing this game there where they need this win more.
Do you think Shane Beamer feels disrespected that Missouri actually scheduled a second straight homecoming to be able to play his team?
I mean, Probably, but
I mean, they already played LSU for homecoming, and now they're playing South Carolina for homecoming. It's very disrespectful to all Missouri's.
but I mean, when else were we gonna have our homecoming? But
They
yeah,
just have it every week, according to Brian Kelly.
Isn't every week homecoming? This is what they do at LSU, right?
I think they should totally lean into that. It's like homecoming 5.0.
I think
no, I saw somewhere. So South Carolina ranks 121st out of 130 in total defense this year out of FBS schools, which is not good. For those of you keeping track at home, not good at all. Their opposing completion percentage is at more than 69% among their FBS opponents, which is also not good. And they're in the bottom 10 nationally in how often they force third and longs and how often they force third and shorts. So
third and medium, though. Solid at that, right?
very, very good at 14 third and fives.
what I think is really interesting. I've been on the record on this podcast and other podcasts I've done. I don't think Florida's a good football team. Like I don't think Florida's good. They had a 37-27. They had a 10-point lead with 9 minutes left in that game, and they lost that game 41-39. And Florida's defense they're not very good either. I mean, like the toilet bowl in that game. Truthfully, I don't think either of those teams are very good. But as you mentioned, any given Saturday, that type and everything like that. But I think that if Missouri comes out and just doesn't shoot themselves in the foot, they should take care of this game. And I think that it should be a pretty easy one.
And that was, I think, the encouraging thing on Saturday was they went ahead and got the Cameron Johnson false start and the Connor Tollison bad snap out of the way in the first quarter.
Yep.
Just get those done. They're going to happen. So just get them done. And then move on. And really the rest of the game, they played pretty clean football. Like there weren't a lot of after the first quarter, there really weren't any huge mistakes. I mean, not everything was perfect, but there weren't any, huge penalties or turnovers or things like that really just derailed.
Which is going to be incredibly necessary, I think, to just want to see a nice, clean football game. I know it's hard to ask for in these times with a nice, clean football game, but I do think that it's the game that is very winnable for Missouri when it comes down to it. Obviously, with I just hope that it also could be a trap game, right?
I think it tests their maturity a lot.
Yes,
because if you win this game, you get a week off, and you are going to be 7-1, playing on CBS against the number one team in the country for the inside track to make the SEC championship. Like.
Yep.
It is, you are 1 week away from the game that you all came to college to play. But that game isn't that game if you don't win this game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the fun thing about a season like 07 or 13 was that every game was the biggest game that they'd ever played.
Yeah.
And then the next game became bigger because they kept winning. Both those teams lost a game and understood, like, we can't lose again if we want to go where we're going to go. And this team's already there. Like, this team can't lose. The next time this team loses, all the talk about Atlanta kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Probably. So, enjoy it while it's there. Keep it on the table as long as you can. And every Saturday that you win makes the following Saturday a little more important.
Yeah, and this is the type of game or the type of season that you have the opportunity to kind of, put your name in stone at programs like Mizzou. You go to a school like Georgia, and I mean, people are going to remember who Brock Bowers is because he's, one of the best tight ends that's ever played. But I don't remember a lot of wide receivers that have played at Georgia. I mean...
Are they going to remember Stetson Bennett?
They'll remember Stetson.
Yeah, because,
I remember George Pickens, but only because he's not Sky Moore.
It's also really fair.
Fair. But, I mean, you remember, when I talk to people about Mizzou, like that aren't Mizzou fans. You know who they asked me about?
Chase
Daniel.
Mhm.
Jeremy Macklin. You know, you have those people that, you know, that they remember. And you have these seasons and you have the opportunity to go in and be one of those players. And I just think that they have the opportunity to kind of recruit without recruiting, I guess, is that if that's kind of like a thing, to get more players to want to play at a school like Mizzou. And they have that opportunity every game from here on out.
Do you know, Gabe, off the top of your head, if they'll have a big recruiting weekend this weekend with folks in town?
I would assume they'll have a good number of people here. I generally don't start kind of looking into that until later in the week after we record this, but I would think 2:30 homecoming, it's going to be a sellout crowd. I would think that, you know, and it's also the last game where, like, there's no chance of it being 32 and sideways freezing rain, you know, I mean, because their next home game is November 11th. And it's probably going to be a night game and it might be miserably cold by then. So yeah, I would think that they will have a decent number of people.
That could help. I think with a lot of the recruiting, and I think even the LSU game did a lot with recruiting, even though they didn't win the game.
Oh, it was the biggest recruiting weekend I've ever seen here. I mean, the number of kids that were on the sideline, and I had multiple people on staff that I just kind of talked to pregame, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't think we've ever had this many kids here."
Wow, good sign. As Missouri is 7.5-point favorites from our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook in this game against South Carolina. Lot of.
Have we, by the way, by talking about the Georgia game, have we looked as a podcast too far ahead? Have we messed this up? Because I get a lot of that on the internet. Like,
we aren't
no, man, they got to play South Carolina. I'm like, they've got to, but I don't got to. I don't got to play.
I'm not on the team.
To be honest with you, I even wrote down, okay, so we did the preview episode at the beginning of this year, and we talked about where we saw Mizzou, like we picked, and I think you guys had them at 5-2 at this point of the season, and I had them at 6-1, so go me. But we talked about, like, you know, the expectations, and a lot of people didn't expect Mizzou to be doing as well. So I even kind of wrote down in my notes, like, where does Mizzou go from here? Do expectations change now that, you know, teams like Arkansas aren't as good as that we thought maybe they were going to be? Not saying that they're honestly not as bad as even their record shows, because
I think they're bad. I'll say it.
I don't think that they're great.
I don't think they're.
I don't think that they're bad. They lost to LSU by 3. They lost to Ole Miss by a touchdown. They lost to Alabama by 3. And all of those games were on the road. So I don't think that they're honestly as bad. I think KJ's offensive line is bad. And Rocket Sanders hasn't played in a bunch of games. So I think that kind of hurts them. But I, like, looking at the schedule, it's so hard for me to, like, sit here and be like, because before I would have been like, oh, that's probably a loss. I mean, I picked him at 8-4. But now I'm kind of like,
I think Missouri should go 9-3. Like, that's my expectation now.
And what did you pick before? 7-5?
7-5. Yeah. And like, I wrote this on Monday morning. If they end up 8-4, like, on one hand, yeah, after a 6-1 start, that will feel a little disappointing. It's not a disappointing season,
Right.
but considering you're sitting here 6-1 and you're an 8-point favorite in the next game, like, 8-4 would feel like a little bit of a letdown from there. I think what the Kentucky game did, like, I think this is a team that that the fan base should go, hey, 9 or 10 and playing on New Year's Day is absolutely on the table. And I think it's okay. I mean, I know there's a lot of people and there's a lot of Missouri fans who say, I'm just going to set my expectations low because then I can't be sad if they don't get fulfilled. But to me, like, isn't the whole point, like, hope? And that's the fun part of this. I mean, I guess if you go into every game going, well, yeah, we're probably going to lose. I don't know. I guess you protect yourself emotionally, but, like, that's not, then you don't get the experience of being a fan of a team. like go along for the ride and start thinking about that. This could be a 10-2 team that's playing in the Peach Bowl, or go to Athens, Georgia, and shoot your shot, man.
Yep.
And maybe it doesn't work, but I think this team should win 9 games at this point, at least.
I think one of my things with the beginning of the season was I don't like to make predictions because, like you said, I don't like to be wrong about things, and I don't like people coming back and being like, well, you said this. But I do like to do the research and kind of be like, well, we do have this, and we did have this last year, and based on, things that happened last year, like this should be the outcome. Like I do like that part of the process of it all. Like thinking about like Brady Cook going through surgery and the fact that he played all these games injured and that these games were so close and things like that. So I do like thinking of like the possibility, and I do like that hope side of things. But then, you think of things like Kansas last year, where they went 5-0, and then, it took them a bit to get that last win, and then they only won one more game, and ended up 6-7, and you don't want to end up like that. So obviously we got our win way much sooner than they did, but I just think that nobody wants to be that type of, put in that situation. So I think every Mizzou fan's afraid that they're going to be Mizzou'd. Verbed.
Yeah. But Gabe, I like it. Fine. You changed my outlook on life, Gabe, with your little...
It's really why I'm here. A little bit of knowledge, but more just positive life outlook. That's what most people say about me.
It's really just a counseling session.
Change outlook on life. Yeah, no, but I'm in that camp of just like, well, if I expect to lose, nothing can hurt me. If I expect the worst to happen, then nothing will hurt me.
But like, it's still not fun. Even if you expect to lose and you do lose, you're like, well, this isn't a fun team to be a fan of.
That's why you show up you show up every Saturday. That's why you should show up anyways. Like, why it's not fun to not go to the Georgia game because you think we're going to lose. You go to the Georgia game last year because you think we have a chance to win, and we did have a chance to win.
Okay, so low-key, that's actually, so I'll be interested to hear what you guys think about this. So on Sunday morning, like I've already put in all our credential requests for the season. And like I don't go to road. A lot of people ask me, you going to Lexington? I'm like, no, that's more than 2 miles from my house. So Gerard goes to all the road games for us. So Missouri wins and all this stuff's being set up. So I put in an extra credential request for the Georgia game. I have not yet decided if I'm going to go. I won't make that decision probably until after South Carolina. Right. But like this is my conundrum about that game. Like if they win this week, if they're 7-1, that is the biggest game this program's played in 10 years. 9 years. It is like on one hand, I should be there for that game, right? Because what if it turns out, what if they go down there and win? So if I stay home, they're going to win that game. Like, I just know that's how it is. I also know if I buy a plane ticket and I send 2 people to staff that game, I'm going to go down there and watch Missouri get beat 41-14, and no one will read my story and care that I was there. So I don't know what to do. On one hand, like, I should be there, probably. But on the other hand,
you don't want to jinx it. You're afraid
it's not that I don't want to jinx it. It's that I don't want to spend the money for a second plane ticket to go watch them get beat by 4 touchdowns and do stories nobody will read. So I'm in a very tough spot here.
This is why you should have bought the tickets during the Southwest sale in advance, and then you can get your credit back.
At the foresight.
Well, I didn't anticipate having any reason to go to that game. I thought, I thought the only way I'm going to this game is if it's like for the East. If we're talking about the top 2 teams in the East, that doesn't seem super likely to be happening at that point.
Yeah. I mean, as you were talking about like the expectations and everything, I was kind of taking a peek at the schedule, jotting down my kind of thoughts here, and like 9-3 would be like at one point I'd be Like, okay, that's like the minimum, I think. Like, that's a loss to Georgia and that's a loss to Tennessee is what I have down.
Right. Or a loss to somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, or some, another fluky game, whatever. But like, yeah, I agree that like 9-3 is a very reachable proposition at this point.
They're favored this week. They will be probably 2 touchdown underdogs to Georgia, regardless of what happens this week.
Yep.
I don't know about Tennessee's the one I'm not.
That's a weird one. That's a weird,
real similar to Kentucky. Like Missouri could be a little bit of a favorite because they're at home, but it'll be kind of a coin toss game. But I think they'll be favored against Florida, and I think they'll probably be favored at Arkansas.
But like Milton only threw for 100 yards last week. 100 yards is one.
It's a very anti-Josh Heupel team. They cannot throw the ball, but they run it really well, and they play really good defense.
Yeah, Jalen Wright had 19 carries and 136 yards, but he had no touchdowns. They kicked. That was a kicking game. It was all kicking. Both teams. They had, I think, one.
That was a way to run
touchdown on like both
jacket up game.
Yeah, it was a. It was.
It will happen.
A good game.
Yeah.
The whole kind of SEC picture is weird this year, just with all the teams and everything. Basically, all the teams in the East not panning out to what we anticipated them to be in Missouri, being a lot better than what a lot of people
rank the Power 5 conferences. I think the Pac-12 is the best conference in the country.
I would agree, and then
the Big Ten. It's top heavy.
The Big Ten's weird because they've got 3 of the top 6 teams in the country, and then they have nothing
else.
But that's how I honestly that's how I think the Pac-12 is, or Pac-2.
I think they're pretty stacked, truthfully.
But I
think Utah's pretty good and might finish 6th in the Pac-12.
But I don't think Utah's offense is that good. I think
no, but they're a good team.
They killed Cal, but Cal's not very good. But I think that
Oregon State, nobody's talking about Oregon State. They're 6-1.
They're pretty good.
But Utah beat UCLA, who just put it to Washington State.
UCLA lost last week.
Oh, I was thinking of Arizona. Sorry.
But
Arizona's good.
Wazoo had been pretty good, but they just got beat 44-6 by Arizona. And then Arizona
I think Arizona's good.
They just almost beat UCLA in double overtime.
USC.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
But
USC might not be that good.
The Big Ten versus the SEC, I find it funny because the Big Ten is what the SEC was for a long time, which was we have 3 teams that can win the national title. Not sure really what else we have. And SEC fans at that point were talking about the SEC being great because look how many teams we have that have won a national title. And now that's what the Big Ten, there is nothing else there.
Yeah.
The 4th best team in the Big Ten, has more punting yards than offensive yards. Right, Iowa is going to go 11-1 to play in the Big Ten title game. Yeah, but they're not a good football team.
I think LSU is like USC to me. They're similar teams in terms of great offenses. I think the 2 best teams are Oregon and Washington.
Yeah, the SEC has 1 team that can win a national title. I think.
Right.
There are others. Alabama is still technically alive. Tennessee is alive. Missouri's alive. They have teams that could, but I don't think anybody's going to say, I don't see this Alabama team being able to win a title. I don't think anybody would say, yeah, I can see Missouri running the table and then winning 2 games in the playoff. I just don't think that's a thing that most people would say. So, I think there's 1 probably great to really good team in this league, and then there's a bunch of decent teams. But I guess the SEC is the 2nd or 3rd best conference in the country because it's better than the Big 12. I mean, the Big 12 has 1.5, 2 good teams, and then a whole bunch of nothing. Yeah. And the ACC, I don't even know what that is.
Shout out to Big 12, by the way, for resurrecting and becoming getting a group of 5 conference after losing all of their good teams. Sorry, I had to get that shot in there.
Is Duke still undefeated?
No, they lost to Notre Dame.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But
yeah, Notre Dame.
It's interesting. I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten are 2 and 3 in some order. But my point is just, I don't know that this is what the SEC has been. I think this is the weakest SEC in quite a while.
And I think a lot of people use that against Missouri when they won it when they won the East in 2013. It was Well, it was a down year for every other team in the SEC. Like, okay, cool. It's neat.
Fine. Good deal.
Well, cool.
Well, it's the same thing they said about the Big 12 North was bad when Missouri won it. Well, part of the reason it was bad was because Kansas State and Nebraska got worse because Missouri beat them.
Right.
You know, I mean, you only play X number of conference. Your conference is going to finish 500 every year. Like, it is mathematically impossible to not finish 500 as a conference. So just because the name teams don't win those games, like maybe South Carolina and Missouri were good that year.
Well, and you know who doesn't care that Alabama is down this year because they won their game?
Everyone else?
Texas.
Right.
Texas doesn't care that Alabama's down. Next year, if Texas and OU come in and they're successful in their first year in the SEC, they are not going to care that the SEC is down. They're going to say the exact same thing that we did, even though they've been saying for years that the only reason that Missouri won the SEC East is because they were down.
You know who cares that Alabama's down? Ole Miss and A&M and Arkansas, who just blew their chance to beat Alabama.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is the year you better go do it. None of them did.
Yeah, win the game.
Just looking at LSU. LSU's just been such an interesting team this year. Like, man, if they wouldn't have lost to Florida State, and then Ole Miss too, I mean, the Ole Miss game, that's one I think if you're an LSU fan, you really want back. Is that LSU game or is that Ole Miss game? But they are a fun team.
We could find a path toward Ole Miss Mizzou in Atlanta.
Listen, what? I want to see the ticket sales for that game.
I mean, I think they'd be through the. Are you kidding me?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Been in.
They've never played in it. Yeah,
you know, Missouri fans would absolutely go. I mean, that would be a fun ass week in Atlanta, no question.
I would have to convince myself to go to that game. If it was Ole Miss Mizzou, I'd be like, got to see Lane Kiffin. You'd see this Ole Miss team.
I would definitely cover that game. I'm still on the fence about Mizzou, Georgia, but if they make the SEC title game, I'll go.
Well, and it would be fun to not have to play Auburn. That's like an hour and a half from Atlanta.
Well, I think it's safe to say if Mizzou gets the SEC title game, they will not be playing Auburn.
I don't think it'll be Auburn.
Good deal. I went back and looked in the last 4 games that Missouri has played against South Carolina. They won by 13, 3, 7, and 20. Now, only 2 of those would be the covering score.
They're the anti-Kentucky. Like, they're the team that suddenly Missouri just beats every year, right?
Yeah. Very weird.
And so, like, on one hand, you broke the Kentucky hex. Don't let South Carolina do the same thing.
Yeah. So I think I feel pretty good about this one. I'm going to pick Missouri to win before we get out of here. I'm going to pick them to win. I don't have the scoregami up in front of me, or I would have picked a scoregami score.
I mean, just pick one that sounds really weird.
Yeah, I think 19 is going to be involved in it. I think South Carolina will score 19 points. So I'm going to say, you know what? 32-19. The Missouri Tigers.
I would think that's a scoregami.
I'm going to look it up.
If I had to guess. I think that's about right. I would go, I think they're 2-1 in the SEC, right? Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, both their wins have been 38-21. So I think every game Missouri wins in the league this year, they're winning 38. I'm going to pick Missouri 38-21 every week that I pick.
Great logic. Sound logic.
I'm gonna go 35-21. I think we're going to miss a field goal.
No faith in Harrison Mevis.
Yeah, we're missing a field goal.
32-19, by the way, is a scoregami. So I clutched that one up by not knowing that. So I'm very excited by that. Yeah, before we go, basketball. How about that? It's almost here. Mizzou, I think, received 6 votes in the AP poll, the introductory AP poll. Who cares? But I thought it's a point that we should mention. Gabe, you were out there and you did some interviews. How are the vibes with the team? That's all I want to ask you. How are the vibes with the team so far?
Yeah, I mean, they feel pretty confident. I think Dennis Gates likes what he has. You know, I just read the CBS Sports SEC preview. I think they do a really good job nationally. And what you're seeing is a lot of, I don't know. I look at Missouri and like I don't really know what to think, but Dennis Gates. So I'm probably going to say they're going to be better than I think they're going to be. That's kind of what he's done in his time as a head coach so far. So, but I thought the most interesting thing that he probably said was, and we know this, but he said, look, we put our schedule together differently. Last year, we kind of eased him into it and had a slow build. And he said, we didn't want to do that this year. We wanted to get into it right off the bat. We want to have some good games and kind of build the schedule in a way that we're going to be tested. I know SEC Media Days starts on Wednesday. I would anticipate Missouri is picked somewhere between 8th and 10th in the league. Take that for whatever it's going to be worth, but I wouldn't be shocked to see them finish higher than that at all.
Yeah, our non-conference it's no joke. Got Memphis early, Wichita State. Glad that game's at home because I know we did the whole overtime dance with them last year. Illinois returns a ton, so that game will be not easy. Kansas and Lawrence with everything that they have. I'm pretty sure they're preseason number 1, and I see them winning the Big 12 and making a deep tournament run. They're going to be good.
Just like credit to Kansas. It was so tough for them to go through 6 years of being under investigation. And I know how hard that was on Bill and his program, and just to have come through that.
I know.
And have won a national title, and to have been victimized and defrauded the way they were for so long. I'm sure that they are greatly relieved in the city of Florence to just be able to go play basketball and not worry about all the rest.
I mean, don't you feel so bad for them that they're no longer the winningest program in college basketball?
I actually did. I talked to a friend of mine who knows a lot of KU people the day those sanctions came down, and I was like, we all knew it was going to happen, but oh my God, they got off easy. And he said, yeah, the funny thing is KU fans think they are so upset about these vacated wins.
Yep.
I mean,
cry me a river. No, I mean that the only obviously it would be a long shot, but going into Lawrence and winning there after all that stuff would be hilarious. But no, I'm a little bit more nervous about our front court than I am about our back court. I'm very scared, very nervous about our front court. I'm just hoping that, I'm not even going to name any names, but I'm just hoping that
they were the worst defensive rebounding team in college basketball last year. How much worse can it be?
I'm just hoping it's not worse. I'm just hoping we have any kind of protection.
I don't think it can be worse.
Yeah. Okay. You're probably right. But, yeah. So just fingers crossed.
At least in that regard.
At least in the rebounding, in the defensive rebounding regard. So.
Yeah.
I have no basketball takes yet. So I was really just hoping that you guys were going to kind of carry that one for me, and I think you guys did. So thank you for doing that. I have not even began to think about the sport of basketball. I did think that I should bring it up though, since Gabe dressed up for the podcast today. I did think that it should be.
Don't expect that to be a regular occurrence. I'm honestly disappointed at how much I've had to work today. It's not normal for me.
Fair. I mean, I get it.
It's this crossover season with both sports. Missouri's good at things now, so that means I have to work more. I'll take that part though. It's way better than just shouting things into the void, and everybody's like, dude, we quit reading your stories 6 weeks ago. Why are you still doing
this? That's fair. All right. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Mizzou That Too. Sorry if you guys wanted more basketball content. I'm sure you don't, but we'll give you more basketball content. Next week. That's a good idea. Let's give some basketball content next week, as Mizzou will be on a bye week, hopefully after a South Carolina dub on homecoming. Very excited for that. For Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson, I'm Tucker Franklin. This has been Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network. We will talk to you guys next week.